네, 반갑습니다. 오늘 둘째 날 저희 컨퍼런스를 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 지금 세 번째 세션인데요. 세 번째 세션은 미국 볼티모어 대학교에 계시는 미카엘 페빈지너 교수님께서 발표를 해주실 거고요. 그 다음에 홍콩 베프티스트 유니버시티의 최아랑 교수님, 그 다음에 건국대 김진욱 교수님께서 토론을 해주시도록 하겠습니다. Okay, we are very glad to have Professor Michael Pevdina from University of Baltimore presenting economic consequences of auditor reputation loss. Okay, so and then after that we have two discussants. Okay, so I'm very glad to have this paper presented on our conference. So please welcome Professor Michael Pevdina.
Thank you very much, Juan. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Can you see me? Because I'm in front of my screen. I don't know if you can.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's not the first invitation that I received from Juan to speak to the Korean audience. In the past, I was very pleased to present to a group of Korean government employees Juan used to bring here to Washington, D.C., and it's always a great fun and pleasure to talk to a Korean audience. And of course, Korea is the hub of audit research. Lots of great colleagues in various Korean universities. So it's my pleasure to share this fairly brand new research with you. The paper is co-authored with Francine McKenna, who is an adjunct professor at the American University, where Juan at one point was a faculty member. Juan and I, of course, used to go to school together. We both have gotten our PhDs from Washington University in St. Louis. Amy Sheneman and Tsahi Zah of Ohio State. And Tsahi was a faculty member at WashU, and Juan and I were students there as well. So it's kind of a very close paper to both of our, should be very close paper to both of our hearts. Francine, I don't know how many of you know her. She, her main job is she's a pretty famous journalist covering audit firms, in particular Big Four audit firms, and she doesn't work there anymore. She's more freelancer right now, working for herself, but she for a long while worked for MarketWatch, which is an affiliate of Wall Street Journal, covering the audit industry. So it's kind of a very interesting and unique team of people. And so this paper addresses pretty embarrassing scandal because it involved not just the auditor kind of malfeasance here, but also it was a huge embarrassment, if you will, to the main regulator of auditors of public companies in the United States, namely Public Companies Accounting Oversight Board. Just to give you a little bit of a background, as a result of this scandal, pretty much some people have gone to jail, mainly former KPMG employees, but the whole PCAOB board was fired, and pretty much every single senior officer of PCAOB was fired as well subsequently. So it was 100% turnover of senior leadership of PCAOB in the wake of this scandal. It's a pretty significant development, which really has changed kind of the regulatory structure potentially of the audit market here in the U.S. And the implications of that have not yet been fully felt. Now, it's very interesting what's going to happen now that we're going to have a change in administration. We can talk about that later, but if you like. But it was a pretty big deal when it happened. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes. Can you speak a little bit louder, though?
A little bit louder? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is that good?
Yes.
Excellent. So here, just to give you, this is the screenshot of the press release of the scandal, essentially of the announcement of the scandal. This is not the first announcement, but that's the announcement of criminal charges, basically, against 6 CPAs, including former staffers, but then subsequent partners at KPMG, and essentially the top brass of the professional audit practice, audit quality group at KPMG's national office, who sanctioned this scheme to steal confidential inspection data from PCAOB and use it to KPMG's advantage. As a result of this scandal, several people have ended up in jail or been convicted. One of them is currently appealing his conviction. And I already mentioned, it was of course a huge embarrassment to KPMG. KPMG, in part for this malfeasance and in part for another malfeasance, it had to do with essentially cheating on the compulsory continuing professional education exam, which they had to do as part of paying penance for some other bad things they've done in the past. They ended up paying a $50 million fine for that. So it was a pretty big shock to their reputation. And it was a horrible embarrassment and a very bad shock to KPMG's, to PCAOB's reputation as well. And so just to give you a little bit of a timeline here, sense of a timeline. So I'm not sure if Korea has a similar regulator, audit regulator to KPMG. My intuition suggests that it does, if my memory is correct. So it has something similar, but basically PCAOB is not technically part of the government, but I would say it's what's called a quasi-government organization. It's a non-profit corporation that reports to the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. Securities and Exchange Commission, U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission is, of course, the primary financial regulator in the United States. And the SEC appoints PCAOB board. Now, the main job, the main function of PCAOB, kind of the core function and the biggest part of its budget, has to do with trying to maintain higher levels of audit quality among audits of publicly held companies in the United States by virtue of conducting confidential inspections, if you will, or unannounced inspections of audit firms, audits. By unannounced, I mean is that audit firms don't know in advance which audits will be inspected upon the completion of those audits. Once PCAOB notifies them, such and such audit will be inspected, they have no right to do anything with that audit anymore. The audit file has to be closed. Work papers cannot be altered in any way. That's actually a federal crime to do that. Of course, all of that was adopted in the wake of Arthur Andersen's scandal in relation to Enron scandal with the work paper destruction and so on. This was now almost 20 years ago. Anyway, so and what KPMG used to do, they don't do that so publicly anymore, but about between 2010 and 2014, they used to basically publicize very widely the rate of deficiencies every audit firm would report. And that created at the time a lot of really negative, bad blood between the audit firms and PCAOB. The main complaint against doing that, just virtue of the background, was that PCAOB did not select those audits randomly. They used to focus on audits that are more likely to have problems. And of course, if you focus on audits that are more likely to have problems, you're going to more likely have problems with them. That's just that. So anyway, so the industry complained for a little while that this process is unfair, that it's smearing unfairly the audit firms and so on. That's just as an aside. But anyway, so they used to basically say that audit firm X has a 40% deficiency rate, audit firm Y had 48% efficiency rate. You can go look it up. But KPMG had embarrassingly high deficiency rate. And of course, at some point, it's kind of tarnishes the firm reputation. You don't want to be the bad child, if you will, the bad student, right? It's kind of like announcing if you're a professor, which back in my day, they don't do this in America. But when I was a kid and I went to Soviet school, everybody's grades were public, so you would know who's got an A, who's got an F. That's basically what PPCUB is. And they do so kind of now, so you can get this information. They just don't, talk about it. But my point being, KPMG had this very embarrassingly high inspection rate, negative inspection findings, and so they get called in at one point to a meeting with PCUB and with the SEC, where they're told, look, this is embarrassing, you got to do something about it, this is not good. You got to fix your audit quality. So what do they proceed to do instead of like really trying to really invest in audit quality? The first reaction, let's try to hire somebody from PCUB who knows the process and will help us, we'll know. It's kind of like, what students do, at least used to do back in my days as a kid, back in the old country, in the Soviet Union. You know that certain professors like to ask certain kinds of questions. So you will hire somebody, a tutor or somebody like that, specializes in that professor's material, and you basically study for that exam. So that's what they did. Now, in fairness, they were not the only audit firm that did that. All the other big four audit firms did that as well. They hired former PCUB staff to help them out. Now, just mere hiring a former PCUB staff member is not illegal. And at the time, there was not even which was to me a huge surprise when I found out about it, there wasn't even a mandatory cool-off period, to go back from essentially from the regulator to somebody you used to regulate. This is all part of the so-called revolving door criticism against the regulatory agencies broadly in the United States. Is that there is this revolving door? People go into into the government, out of the government. There's this kind of, and that kind of some allegedly compromises the whole integrity of the regulatory process. But there was nothing illegal about it. So KPMG hired this guy, Brian Sweet, who used to be senior inspector of at PCUB banking inspection banking practice or group. And this guy essentially brings with him a list of audit clients of KPMG, many of them large banks and financial institutions, that will be inspected in the next period. That, of course, what he did by virtue of bringing that list with him from PCUB to KPMG, it violates, obviously, the rules, the ethics standards, and the critical. That's something you could not have done that. And so, but what ends up happening is that this is kind of becoming builds on itself. So, then they get somebody, Cynthia Holder involved, which is the former colleague of Brian Smith at PCUB, get her hired into KPMG. She steals some information, passes on to KPMG. All of that is done with the full knowledge and sanction of top leadership of the DPP, Department of Professional Practice, Audit Quality Group of KPMG. So that's why sometimes people call it as steal the exam scam, because they stole the exam essentially. Now, they get so, over time, in the beginning they tried to, only a small group of people knew about it, this illegal activity. They used to call themselves, incidentally, in a funny way, Circle of Trust. But eventually, what happened is they slipped, and Brian Sweet, accidentally maybe, told an audit partner, just a regular audit partner in Chicago office, that you know that essentially your client will be inspected, so you better clean it up. And this lady, to give her credit, her name is Diana Kuhn, said, "Well, we're not supposed to know this. This is clearly illegal. Where is he getting this information? And I'm not supposed to know that." Basically notifies the leadership of the KPMG, the General Counsel's office. They, start an investigation. The rest is history. Eventually, KPMG pretty quickly discloses this to the DCAB and to the SEC, fires these people that are involved, and essentially they're criminally charged, and some of them are criminally convicted. And in fact, the whole trial of everybody involved is not yet, may have just been completed for all. Anyway, so that's kind of the synopsis of the story. So what's interesting and where we came in with this project is that this is a very unique situation. Anytime there's any sort of litigation that goes on, typically between the audit firm and its clients or whatever, it usually never goes to court. It's usually settled. Now, because it's settled, we never really know, because the records are sealed as part of settlement. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. This is a very unique case in that it went to trial. And because it went to trial, we have transcripts of the trial. And in the course of the trial, the identities of the clients whose inspection whose expected inspection was disclosed in advance, was made public. And it's kind of like, now these clients themselves didn't do anything wrong, but somehow, because of the fact that it was in trial, now their identities have been disclosed, and so it's almost like a case of potential guilt by association. Now, so we went and gotten trial transcripts, collected those clients' names from there. Now, what else is unique about this whole case is that typically, if you look at the research literature in auditing and you look at reputational damage from bad audits, let's say, it's almost always the case. In fact, I don't know of any other study that did it otherwise. It's always the case. The client commits a restatement or a fraud, and after the fact, what is the penalty against the auditor? Because the auditor failed to discover it. Now, the problem with that is that ultimately it's the client who committed fraud, not the auditors. It's very difficult to disentangle exactly what was the auditor's role here. Yes, the auditors have an influence over financial statements. Yes, they failed to discover it, but it was, at the end of the day, primarily the client. This is a unique setting where it was the auditor entirely who did something wrong. So it allows for more unique reputational examination setting to examine negative shock to reputation. Also, because the top of the national office was involved, it allows us to understand better the full role of quality control, the damage to the tone on the top, and so on. So what did we do here? So I already mentioned we basically got this transcript, and we read them through. It wasn't a pleasant exercise because there's probably, close to 1,000 pages there. But we collected the data. And also in the process of it, learned a lot about this. It's a fascinating reading. We also have a companion teaching case on this, if you're interested, which I'm happy to refer you to. But sort of the inner workings of PCOB, the inner workings of KPMG, of the national office. But bottom line, we collected the transcript samples. And then we started looking at, was there anything specific really about, anything interesting that happened to this transcript sample? First, we just looked at the KPMG versus other audit firms. But then the core of the paper is about the transcript sample. That's the meat of the paper. Where we compare the transcript sample to other Big Four, a transcript sample to non-transcript KPMG. and we conduct a difference in difference analysis for between 2015 and 2019. We look at audit fees, non-audit fees, market reaction to disclosure. Can you guys hear me okay? Hello? Okay, great. All right, so...
Yes, we can hear. Yeah, go ahead.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So what do we find? So remember there were several dates. First, KPMG basically came out and said and self-disclosed that we had this group of people, they were doing these bad things. That's the April 2017 date. And incidentally, I didn't know, I was at the SEC at the time when this happened. But I had no knowledge whatsoever that there's even an investigation going on. But the bottom line is, what this table demonstrates is that there is no market reaction to this. Essentially, you could see that there is no significant difference between market returns of KPMG and other Big Four on that day. These are the clients of KPMG stock market reaction versus clients of other Big Four. Now, why is this the case? Because first of all, it was kind of muted. Okay, nobody really knew who was impacted. We didn't know who the clients were at the time yet either. And excuse me. Also, SEC kind of came out and went out of their way to say that you shouldn't infer anything about the audit clients per se here, and so on. This is all about the auditor's behavior. Clients are just kind of innocent bystanders. Now, about 9 months later, in fact, SEC announced formal charges against these partners, former partners at that point. And you could see very clearly that on the date of the announcement, the KPMG client portfolio, these are not the transcript clients, these are just all KPMG clients, about 679 of them. They experience a very severe negative market reaction. There's a clear significant difference between them and the other Big Four, which suggests that KPMG as a whole was penalized for this. The market didn't like it. Kind of a credibility shock, if you will, to this bad news. And so now, what's important to remember is that the market doesn't know, even at this stage, on January 22nd, 2018, who are these so-called transcript clients, the ones that we collected, the ones that whose identities, like whose inspections were pre-disclosed. That is not, there's no one event. So that's why we're looking at, you could decipher, first of all, that would only become knowable something like 15 months later. And it wouldn't be over one day. Somebody had to sit down and read about it. And so there. But eventually, the trial happens about a year later, and we're able to, excuse me, to do this sort of analysis on the transcript of clients. So first of all, and from this point onward, our paper follows fairly traditional design in this literature, in that we look at auditor turnover as a result of this post-event, post-period, as the post, in this case, post-announcement of charges. And we don't really find anything with respect to overall turnover of KPMG versus non-KPMG. Now, we do find a slightly higher probability of the auditor turnover for transcript clients, meaning that they kind of get the wind of this happening, and they are more likely to leave KPMG as a result of this whole thing. So there is a negative reputational consequence here. Then we look at audit fees of these clients, again, of KPMG versus transcript. We don't find pretty much anything. There's really no audit fees change. But when you look at non-audit fees, we do find that non-audit fees do decline for transcript clients. and find it also for audit-related fees. So in other words, you could interpret these results as saying that KPMG doesn't want to kind of annoy the clients even more by offering them this additional non-audit services and basically kind of maybe offering them concessions and so on. So trying to be nice, make nice with their clients because they've been exposed like that. Now, we also conduct an analysis with loan loss provision, specifically of banks that are in the subsample. We find that the loan loss provision quality, broadly speaking, is reduced for KPMG, for the transcript clients, suggesting again that KPMG is kind of doesn't push them hard anymore because of this embarrassment and possible guilt by association. So that's essentially the paper. The conclusion is that we find that there is in fact a negative stock market reaction to the charges to KPMG. So there is kind of market perceived now KPMG at that date, one could argue, as more risky. There is, in fact, an increased evidence of turnover among transcript clients and a reduction in non-audit fees. So overall, our studies suggest that inadvertent exposure of KPMG clients' identities during the trial imposed additional costs on those clients because of perceived negative shock to the picture. And that's my story. So I'm looking forward to the discussions, presentation, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Professor Pevdina. Okay, so we have two discussants. First discussant is Professor Adam Che from Hong Kong Baptist University. Okay. So, can you share ours? Professor Che, can you share yours? Oh, okay. So, okay, all yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so if you cannot hear me clearly, please let me know. So thank you for having the discussion opportunity of the interesting paper. So I'm a discussant, the Adam Che from Hong Kong Baptist University. Okay, so before starting my discussion, I want to say that I really enjoy reading the paper because it uses very interesting event, which is the KPMG scandal. And the writing was so good, so the flow of the writing is very easy to follow. Yeah, so thanks for sharing the interesting paper with us. Yeah, so yeah, this is the very brief summary of the paper. Yeah. This paper examines the 2017 the KPMG scandal, so which is some event that led the audit quality control system because some partners in the KPMG tried to theft some confidential regulatory information. And then the empirical results show that some negative stock market returns from KPMG clients surrounding the SEC announcements and the clients, the transcript sample. So that means the affected by the scandal leave KPMG and try to find new audit firms. However, the results on audit fees are insignificant while non-audit fee decreases. And the last one is the results on audit quality, and it shows the bank clients' audit quality decreases after the scandal. Okay, and yeah, I think this paper can contribute to literature and also to the practitioners in two ways. Okay. Actually, the contribution is already good summarized in the paper, but I tried to reorganize the contribution in my own understanding. Okay. The first one is that this paper is very important because it gives a good implication in the process of the audit quality. Okay. So in my mind, the audit quality is determined by two steps. Okay? The first one is that client firm prepare financial statements, which is audited by accounting firms. Okay? So this is the first step, and I think there's already too many papers on it. Okay? However, the second step, after audit firm conducted some of their roles, the PCAOB reviewed the work done by audit firm. Okay? So as indicated in the red color, so this paper focuses on the second step, the second audit verification process. I think this part is important but relatively underexplored area. So in that sense, I think this paper can contribute a lot. And the second point that I want to emphasize is that I like the research setting in this paper. So by utilizing the events that only happens to KPMG, and the paper compares KPMG clients with another Big Four clients. So I think it's very good setting for difference and difference design. Okay. When I read a lot of audit papers, I felt that it is not easy to separate the effect of the auditor reputation from others. So for example, the clients with a good corporate governance normally prepare good quality financial statements. So after auditing, their financial reporting quality is still good. And at the same time, it is possible that these kind of clients are more likely to hire reputable auditors. So in this case, is the high quality reporting because of client or reputable auditor? It is not easy to disentangle. Okay? And the prior studies try to capture the effect of the auditor reputation, or the auditor's role. They use very rough measure like a Big Four auditor, or just assume that the industry specialist auditor are high quality or more reputable. However, I believe these measures are not good at capturing the effect of the auditor reputation. Okay? However, this paper uses a good setting that directly capture the effect of the auditor reputation loss. Okay? So information leakage events can obviously capture the damaged reputation loss of the audit firm. And it occurs only in one Big Four, not all Big Four, but just one audit firm, which is the KPMG. Yeah, so this is very good setting to examine the effect of the reputation loss. Yes, and despite these good contributions, to be a little help for the paper, I prepared my comments in 4 different perspectives. Okay? The first one is that this paper uses these 2 model specifications. The first one is that the KPMG clients, including transcript sample, is compared with another Big 3. And in a second way, the transcript sample is compared with another client, including non-transcript KPMG and Big 3. Okay? However, I expect the research specification at the bottom, okay? The comparing the KPMG without transcript sample with the another Big 3. The reason is that when I read the abstract and the introduction and the title, I thought that this paper's main focus is the effect of the reputation loss by the audit firm, okay, not the reputation loss of the client firm. However, as indicated in the 1 and 2 in the slides, if the transcript sample is included in the treatment group, okay, I think it captures the characteristic of the transcript firm, not the audit firm effect. Okay. So one of my concerns is that the current research design may capture the effect of the transcript samples characteristics. And if I correctly understood, the transcript samples are not random. In the appendix, it stated that there is some predictive model of engagement likely to be targeted by PCAOB. So when I read this sentence, I felt that transcript samples are targeted by PCAOB. Maybe these kind of firms have more deficiencies. So in that case, transcript sample will affect audit outcomes differently than the other samples. So that's why I tried to remove transcript sample from the treatment group. So one of my suggestions is that, as indicated here, the research specification at the bottom, the comparing non-transcript KPMG client with another's, or another way is that the authors may consider constructing a matrix sample that compose the transcript sample and non-transcript sample, where these two samples have very similar firm characteristics, but the only difference is that whether their identification is disclosed or not. Okay. Yeah. So this is my first comment, and the second one is that while I'm reading the paper, I try to connect the contents to the spillover or contagion effect in prior studies. And when I read some spillover papers, their unit of analysis are mostly audit office level or audit partner level. However, this paper's unit of analysis is the spillover effect is more focused on national level audit firm, which is the KPMG. I agree that this event is more coming from tone at the top, so it's more related to the national level. However, I thought that some results are insignificant when KPMG clients are compared with the other big three. So if the authors considering narrowing down the unit of analysis to office level or audit partner level, then there may be some more significant results. The spillover, the negative spillover effects are within same office or within the same audit partner. So that is my another suggestion. Okay, and then the third one is that the analysis about the financial reporting quality. Okay, so table 9 shows that the audit quality of KPMG clients has deteriorated following the scandal. However, the results are a little bit surprising to me because the KPMG have taken several improvement actions following the scandal. Okay. And according to the prior studies, if the firm conducted some reputation repair actions, there are more positive returns and the improvement in earnings response coefficient. Okay. So that's why I also expect some improvements in financial reporting quality, but the results are the opposite. Okay, so that's why I feel a little bit surprising. However, there should be possible alternative explanations on this. Okay. So as the paper mentioned, the reduction in audit quality at KPMG, maybe it is temporary. Okay. So it would be good if the authors can test whether the audit quality for a more long-term period, if the data are available. Or another alternative explanation is that the paper only examined the effects on banking industry. So the authors can argue that the deteriorated audit quality is limited to banking industry. But I'm also wondering how the effects on other industries, any good spillover effects, which is the improvement in audit quality to other industry. So that is another test to be checked. And another interpretation is that while I'm looking at the table 9 closely, it may indicate that the audit quality of non-transcript sample may increase. Okay? So this is the table 9, and the column 1 and 2 compares the KPMG client with the other, but there is no difference. However, in column 3 and 4, it compares transcript client with the others, and it shows that the other group has some improvement in audit quality. Okay. And when I check the difference between column 2 and 4, the difference is that non-transcript sample of KPMG is added in column 4, and that may cause the different result. So when non-script KPMG sample are included, we can see improvement in the quality. Okay. So if we slightly change the research design, then maybe there are some improvements in audit quality following the scandal. Okay, and then the last one is the very minor one. And while I'm reading the paper, I like the results that affected clients are leaving KPMG due to the reputation loss. Okay? And according to my own calculation, there are 255 observations are transcript sample, and of which around 50% changed their auditor. So I think these results are very interesting, so it would be more interesting if the paper can show more details on this process. For example, whether the auditor change is driven by auditor resignation or the client dismissal. Or it would be also good if we can know more about what kind of clients have changed the auditors. The clients with more risk or more effective audit committee or more foreign institutional investors, or the connection is one of the important part in this paper. So whether any connections between the client and the audit partner can affect the turnover decision. Okay? And the last one is that when a client changes the auditor, I'm also wondering the response from the new auditor. Do they perceive the client as high-risk client and thereby charge higher fee or not? Okay? So that could be another extension. Okay, and these are the references. Yeah. And this is what I prepared for the comments. Okay? And as Professor raises a question during his presentation, in Korea, we don't have a PCAOB. Okay? We don't have an organization like a PCAOB. We have a financial regulatory system, okay, which is very similar to SEC, but we don't have any separate regulatory body for listed companies. So I believe, and in Korea, there are many opinions that we need a very similar organization like a PCAOB. And this paper will give also very good implications in other countries without the organizations like a PCAOB. Okay? Yeah. So thank you for listening and good luck on the paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your wonderful discussion.
Thank you, Professor Chair, for very constructive and detailed discussions. Okay, so we have second discussant, Professor Jinuk Kim from Konkuk University.
I feel so honored to discuss this wonderful paper. And actually, Dr. Pevzner, I like your slide template of Ohio State. This Monday might be a sad day for two of your co-authors in Columbus. Please say go Bucks to them for another Buckeye fan in Korea. Okay, I think the goal of this study is super clear: to examine the economic consequences of auditor reputation loss, as it is titled. And the authors are smart enough to use 2017 audit inspection scandal as a natural experiment in order to tease out the auditor effect. Okay, this study provides evidence on the response to the event by clients, auditor, as well as stock market. And first, they examine the auditor switch decision by KPMG's general and transcript clients. And second is KPMG's audit fee decision. And then the authors examine non-audit fee decision. In summary, this study provides a battery of analysis, including auditor turnover, changes in audit fees, and changes in non-audit fees. My first suggestion, here we need to interpret the results with more comprehensive view. For example, let's consider KPMG's utility function. KPMG, they would like to maximize the sum of audit fees and non-audit fees. So in that sense, the audit fee decision is interrelated to non-audit fee decision. That's exactly why the authors examine changes in non-audit fee as well as changes in audit fees. In addition to that, clients' response to the scandal, such as auditor switch decision, may also be related to the audit fee decision. So the dynamic and the interaction between clients and KPMG make the interpretation more complicated. So in more detail, let's consider the audit fees. This study finds unchanged audit fees in the post-scandal period. Simply stating, audit fee is audit hours times hourly fee. While these audit hours represent audit effort, we are more interested in the changes in hourly fee, which we cannot observe. Of course, if we assume the audit hours are not changed, then the unchanged audit fee means unchanged hourly fees, as in case 3. However, consistent with the reputation preservation story, it is also natural to assume KPMG devoted more audit hours in order to rebuild their reputation. Then, the finding of unchanged audit fee means the decrease in hourly fee, as in case number 1. And moving to non-audit fees, this study finds decreased non-audit fees, implying the cost of the scandal. However, the interpretation is still unclear. Did KPMG offer non-audit fee concessions? If so, this is the response by KPMG. Or did clients switch away from KPMG? Then it is the response by the clients. So it might be also interesting to examine whether KPMG's share of total non-audit fees for each client actually changed. And my second suggestion is straightforward, and this is pretty much what Dr. Che already mentioned. In the analysis, the authors used 2 subsamples, KPMG's general clients and transcript clients. As I understand it, in the first analysis, the treatment group is the whole KPMG clients, and the control group is other Big Four clients. What if we restrict the treatment group to KPMG's non-transcript clients? I'm just wondering the result and its implication in this different setting. And in the second analysis, the treatment group is KPMG's transcript clients, and the control group is KPMG's non-transcript clients as well as other Big Four clients. My suggestion is to drop these KPMG's non-transcript clients from the control group, since these clients may be affected by the event. And finally, miscellaneous. This study also examines the impact of the event on financial reporting quality. But I'm worried that I'm not actually following the results and its interpretation. And in addition, with respect to financial reporting quality, you may add a more general measure for financial reporting quality as a corroborating analysis, since you still have 75 and 40% of non-financial observation. And the last one, the authors may show the economic significance of their findings in dollar amount. Overall, great job and great work. I'm pretty much sure that next time I may find this article in a decent journal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bon, do you want me to answer any questions?
Okay, thank you. Another great discussion, Professor Kim. Okay, so we have a couple of minutes. If we have any questions from the floor or from online, we will take maybe one. Otherwise, we will listen from Professor Mikhail on the response. Any questions? Okay, I think, just a short of time. Professor Pevziner, can you respond to those to discuss?
I just want to say this is one of the best. It's probably the best conference discussions I've ever seen of my work. So both discussions were incredibly thorough and very thoughtful, which I appreciate very much. I would gladly, even more so appreciate if you send me the slides, because I'm sure, the co-authors would love the insight. But I think these are very valid points, and I certainly we didn't think about focusing we kind of, I guess, had a knee-jerk reaction to focus on transcript clients. But now that I've heard you guys, I think it's a very interesting idea to look at non-transcript clients, right? Like the kind of exclusion, and we kind of didn't think much of them. But I do agree that at the minimum, for descriptive purposes, we should look at them as well. And kind of play around with it, whether they should be in the control group or not. So I appreciate that. It's a great idea. In terms of looking at other types of accounting quality measures, we'll probably, in the next generation of the paper, that will probably be included as well, because it's kind of a very natural comment. So thank you both. It was wonderful. I appreciate it. And thank you for inviting me. A great honor, and thank you, Bond, and thank you all the participants for having me.
Okay, thank you, Professor Mikhail. Pevziner, hope you invite these two great discussants for the future works.
Absolutely, yes. God willing.
Okay, great.
Everyone should all be able to travel.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. This concludes our third session. We will resume the fourth session, the last session, 10:45. 10시 45분에 재정준칙 관련 네 번째 세션을 시작하겠습니다. 이것으로 세 번째 세션을 모두 마치겠습니다. 네, 모두 감사드립니다. 감사합니다. 네.
Thank you.
예.
Good morning, everybody.